was first published. What do you think it is about him in particular that keeps drawing people back? I mean, to write dozens,
there are ebbs and flows. And I think what happens is periodically you either get just the right actor who ignites and excites people and ignites some sort of it, or you get a really good pastiche that makes the Times bestseller list and gets everybody interested in Sherlock Holmes again. So, like, you know, you had Rathbone in the 30s, and then things kind of ebbed. I mean, he never went away. Rathbone continued to do the radio series. John Gielgud was Sherlock Holmes. Probably the best radio show is a version of The Final Problem. And the cast was John Gielgud as Sherlock Holmes, Sir Ralph Richardson as Watson, and Orson Welles as Moriarty. And that's, you know, radio.
I'm learning so much. Orson Welles.
Yes.
Moriarty.
You know, from my perspective, I would consider Holmes to be sort of timeless, right? So you can imagine him as, you know, Agatha Christie in, you know, Hercule Poirot, you know, this master detective, you know, and even in the modern day, you know, a James Bond type character, or even a Jack Reacher type character, that he's perennial and, you know, he transcends any circumstance he comes across or whatever it is. And I think those characters end up being timeless and enduring, you know, as a function of that that kind of robust stereotype, if you will, you know.
Well, as I said, you know, with Holmes, you had Basil Rathbone, who excited people back in the 30s. Then you have this kind of lull, if you will. And then Jeremy Brett comes along in the 80s, you know, and gets people all excited again. And in between, you had a book called The 7% Solution by Nicholas Meyer, which was a Times bestseller and became a film, and that spawned other films and other imitators. So every once in a while, all it takes is one, and that triggers 4, 5, 6 other major contributors, if you will.
I need someone to do that with my book.
Yes. Well, and you could even imagine some of the, like, you know, Philip K. Dick, whatever, you know, some of this beat type stuff that took place as well, that noir aspect to things, all of that, I would think traces its lineage back to Sherlock Holmes. Moriarty, the wonderful arch nemesis. And so I have a Moriarty martini, which Laura is showing here in the camera. And some aspects to this are, we start with some vodka. We, of course, had dry vermouth, and then a wonderful blackcurrant liqueur. And then we float some black currants in it, as well as a little chunk of lemon. All of that goes over a bit of ice. And it makes one of the best martinis I certainly have ever had. And the more it's been steeping in a little bit of the black currant, you know, it really has a wonderful, very classic flavor. And again, mysterious and kind of old school, the way Moriarty himself is, you know, I think.
And I see you drank yours already.
I did finish mine over supper. So, yes. Cheers. Ding. You know, here we go.
Right. And I think that in general, I'm not really a fan of martinis. I don't find them very tasty at all. But this one I kind of like. So
you'll make an exception.
You know, I'm not a huge fan of cocktails in general. Ironically, I'll have one, like, you know, a couple times a month, maybe, if we're out at a restaurant and I just don't feel like wine. Mostly I drink wine, which is the irony that I'm doing books and brews and beers. Don't even like beer, but it's been fun. And I learned a lot from Michael when he was my co-host. So anyway, that is the Moriarty martini. And if you like martinis, or even if you don't, you might like this.
They're not terribly well. And again, you know, the short stories are uneven because he really grew to dislike Holmes, and that's why he killed him off. You know, he wrote to his. He considered himself to be a very serious writer of historical fiction. So you look at The White Company and you look at some of his other works, And he wrote to his mother and he said, Holmes keeps me from better things. I think I've decided to kill him off. And his mother wrote back and said, you will not, you must not, you cannot. And he didn't listen to his mother, and he did. And the only reason he came back really was financial. I mean, Doyle was the highest paid author of his time. And they came and they offered him a ton of money to resurrect Holmes. And he said, no, no, no. And they came back, a couple of years later with 2 tons of money and said, all right, yeah, okay, I can do that. So that was the Hound of the Baskervilles.
I'll do it. Right?
So that's the secret to success. Right. Kill off your character.
Yeah. But I mean, he was getting tons and tons and tons of money for these short stories and these novels.
So what you're saying is Arthur Conan Doyle was sort of the equivalent of a violin virtuoso who finds that he makes more money writing little tunes for ads, little jingles.
Yeah.
As a musician and writer, I see how that's depressing, but I would still accept the money.
Right.
Well, 1881, 1882.
A little later than that, I think.
Okay. So you set your stories kind of beyond when Arthur Conan Doyle did?
Well, Conan Doyle wrote the first Holmes story takes place in 1881, and he set Holmes' story all the way up until 1914.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the last story is called His Final Bow, and Holmes is actually posing as an Irishman named Altamont, and he's meeting with a German agent to give him plans, and it's all subterfuge because he's giving him bogus plans, on the eve of World War One.
Okay, I learned something. I was curious though, being set in the 1880s,
right? How
in the world did he get the two of them to look so much alike?
Well, Holmes was a master of disguise throughout. There's got to be 20 or 30 stories of the 60 where Holmes employs a disguise, and everyone, Doyle had different people say, what the stage really lost something when you decided to become a detective. And, another quote was, Mr. Holmes, you would have made an actor and a rare one. So as I say,
I was just curious, even things like the shape of the nose, the cheekbones, things like that, did they presumably look enough alike that he could get away with that?
I would think so. I mean, the thing is, you see, in the films, you see Brett and Basil Rathbone using all kinds of prosthetics and.
Okay, so would things like that have been available in the 1880s?
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, that particular scene, Stephen Hatcher, who did the screenplay for the movie Mr. Holmes, that starred Ian McKellen, he said he really liked that particular scene, and he kind of alluded to it in a blurb he gave me for the front of the book. He said, I had Holmes do a double take that should have been, that every author who has written Holmes say, why didn't I think of that?
That's fantastic. One of my favorite books, are you familiar with The Scarlet Pimpernel?
Sure, I love The Scarlet Pimpernel.
Yes, who doesn't love a master of disguise, right? And I would tell you one of my favorites